How to buy a used vehicle from a dealership or a private seller, with cash or with financing. This video will be a complete video on how to purchase a vehicle, whether it's new or used, but it will mostly be talking about used because that's where it gets a little complicated. And we'll go over what you need to look for when you're examining the physical vehicles themselves and how to deal with the dealerships and the private sellers. So first, you set your budget. You go out to the dealership that you want to check out or the private seller. And realistically speaking, if you're buying a used vehicle, just buy from a private seller because you're always going to get a better deal from a private seller. They also take better care of their vehicles and they're going to end up charging you less. So do that if you can. But if you can't and you're at a dealership, arrive and start by examining the actual vehicle. So the first thing you're checking is for the fit and finish of the body panels, and you're just looking for any type of damage that sticks out like a sore thumb. I examine the paint job. I look at the lights on the car to see if there's any sagging lights or sagging panels. Like here you can see on the left side there's a sagging bumper, most likely from previous damage. And the wheels are pretty old and actually need to be replaced pretty much immediately. Driving on these is kind of dangerous. So you're checking for anything that is going to give you negotiation power, because whatever price they say that it's listed as is actually an insane markup, because they got the vehicle for $4,000 to $8,000 less. You just need negotiation power, because if you can't negotiate, then you're going to have to pay the sticker price, and most likely they might even tack on other bogus charges. So you have to learn how to defend yourself while you're buying a used vehicle. When it comes to checking out the tires, you can look at the physical tire and see if there's any of these stretch marks. And that's how you'll know whether the tire is old or not, and also the tire age will be written right on the tire. You can also use like a penny, and if you put the penny in between the grooves of the tread wear, and if the head is exposed of the president, that's how you'll know that it's time to replace those wheels. Generally, if the wheels are 4 to 6 years old, they're getting pretty old, they need to be replaced immediately. Examine each component of the vehicle. So you start by looking at the body, then you look at the tires, then you start to go inside the vehicle, you look at the seats, you look at the door. You're just looking at anything that might need some work. And actually, if something is messed up, you can ask for a discount based on how much it'll cost you to fix it, because they didn't fix it, so they're going to pass on the hassle to you. So you have to tell them that you need some kind of discount. Now, there are some dealerships like CarMax that don't actually provide any discounts at all, and you can't really negotiate with them because they just always have good deals regardless. They're a little bit expensive, but at least you always get a great vehicle. The problem with small-time dealerships is that you might get a terrible deal with a terrible vehicle, so there's just a lot more risk involved. So when I was getting in the vehicle, the first thing I noticed is that there were actually some error codes on the dash, and that is an extremely bad sign. You want to stay away from dealers that just buy a car and instantly resell it, because that means they didn't do the due diligence to fix anything or address any of the problems the vehicle has. And if there's error codes, that means they didn't even clear them. So the problems are literally out in the open, and if you buy from them and you have some kind of issue, they're not going to help you, and it's just going to be sold as is like usual. So eventually you'll probably want to take a look at the engine bay. If the engine bay is dirty, run. The engine bay pretty much represents how good like the vehicle condition is, and if they don't clean the engine bay, then it pretty much means that the car really hasn't been taken care of. If you're seeing any signs of rust or damage of any kind, just run, because anytime you buy a vehicle, it doesn't have to have any issues. You can find something that works good, that is clean. If the vehicle is dirty, just run. Just don't even buy it. Don't even consider getting it. If you find out that the vehicle has any type of flood or water damage, like the one that I'm seeing here, there's all this green moss on the inside, there's literally water droplets everywhere inside the engine bay. I think this was a flooded vehicle from Florida. So you don't really want to be buying vehicles from the coast because they have rust and body deterioration damage, and you don't want to buy vehicles that have been badly abused in Florida or have been in any kind of flood or anything like that. You start the engine up, you want to listen to it, hear the sound, see if anything sounds off. Play a normal sounding engine from like an online video, and then compare that to the engine that you're listening to while it's running, and look for any kind of leaks or anything, because after you've ran it for 5-10 minutes and even test driven it, you'll see if there's any leaks under the vehicle. Eventually the leaks will come out, and any type of bad patching or problems they're trying to hide will come out in the open. The longer you're interacting with the vehicle, you will find something eventually. A good dealership also tops up the fluids, like the brake fluid and the coolant. You want to make sure all that stuff is good. And the way you know it's good is you'll check the levels, like right on the actual container where the fluids are located. You'll check the levels, and you'll also look at the liquid itself. If the liquid looks like there's tiny little particles floating around inside and it's kind of translucent, and if the liquid doesn't look consistent to what the liquid's supposed to look like, then you'll know there's a problem. You want to look at the actual physical disc brakes, and you want to see if the disc brakes need to be replaced or not. You'll also want to check the actual physical pads of the brakes. Oftentimes what dealers will do is they'll buy a vehicle that might have good components, like it might have good brakes, and they'll just remove those good brakes, maybe put it on a different car, and then they'll try to sell you it with bad brakes or bad consumables, because a lot of components in the car actually over time eventually just die out and they break down. And if they know that somebody wants to buy a specific car, they might even try to switch out the components inside. One area you want to look for in terms of body damage is right below the vehicle, like near the perimeter, near the bottom, the closest part to the ground. You're looking for any type of curb rash. You can even ask them to patch up any type of curb rash that you see and touch it up, because if the paint is cracked or chipped, that will eventually become a much bigger problem. So you need to ask them to address that. Look at the history of the vehicle as well, like if they have any type of like Carfax or that kind of thing. Obviously, if the vehicle list price is too high or too low, there's something wrong. So when you're comparing the actual price, you want to compare it to all the so what you do is you go to a website like Auto Tempest, you'll do a quick search for the type of vehicle you're looking for, and you'll see all the pricing, and from there you'll determine the average price that the vehicle is sold for. Then you'll compare that price to the vehicle you're buying from at the specific dealer or private party. When it comes to badly abused vehicles, you will normally find those at dealerships, especially small-time dealerships. The larger the dealership, the safer your purchase is. However, sometimes you can find very, very good deals at small-time dealerships. After my Ford Focus got sold, I decided that I would look for a new vehicle, and I went to every single dealership in my town. I just ran from one dealership to the next. I spent about 2 days doing that, and that's how I was able to basically find a vehicle that I really liked. In the end, I ended up settling with a C7 from CarMax. It was 17K miles for $40,000, and it was in pretty good condition when I got it, so I really liked it. The only issue that it had was water droplets. A very good strategy to use to determine if the dealership is honest or not is to ask them, are there any problems with the vehicle? And if they say no and you find extremely obvious problems, then you know that you can't trust the dealership. It's probably better to move on, because that'll mean that they'll probably try to hide things, and you don't want to work with untrustworthy dealerships. However, keep in mind that sometimes they're not very competent. They miss things also, and that's why it's best to just rely on your own analysis. If the vehicle is over 10 years old, they do not need to disclose how many actual miles it has. And that makes it kind of tricky, because the odometer disclosure system basically doesn't work past that. So if you're buying vehicles that are over 10 years old, you're going to have to be very savvy and know what to look for, because if it says it has 30,000 miles, it might have double or triple that. Older vehicles also get tampered with, and people roll back the odometers on those, so you'll basically be driving around in a ticking time bomb. So they said that the car's in good working mechanical condition. There's no problems as far as they know. Well, this problem, this is going to drain your battery, so that's not true. So they freaking lied to me already. The tire pressure is all the PSI for the oil gauge looks a little low. I'm gonna have to look into that. They gave the car to me literally with no fuel, so I had to refuel it. Good thing they gave me some money for that. It seems like the heads-up display does not work. I'm very surprised. That's like one of the coolest features. Kind of surprised it's not working at all. Yeah, that's a kind of a deal breaker, I think, right there. The engine bay looked pretty terrible. There was literally like dirt and sand in there and stuff. Like, I can't believe how bad the engine bay was. There might even be a bit of a smell in here. Let's see. I think I'm smelling maybe some gasoline. It's kind of a big deal, I think. I'm going to try to listen to the engine a little bit more, see if I can hear anything. Instant fuel economy, range 92 miles. Okay, what about this? Tire pressure, rear. Yeah, so either the sensors are broken, they either lied about the sensors being broken in the tire, or the tire pressure is completely wonky. The tires are literally 4 years old, so that means they need to be replaced, so I'm not going to be paying for that. Screw that. So they better give me a discount on that. Oil pressure 30. I think that might be low. I'm gonna have to look into that. The temperature it better not go above 220, because that's not gonna be a good sign. I'm gonna take it out for a spin on the highway here, and I'm making sure that all the gauges and all the sensors are operating properly. Without that, I have no idea. I don't know if it's been, taken care of or not, but from the looks of it, it looks like it hasn't been taken care of, which really sucks. And even though it's low miles, I mean, if it's in this kind of shape where there's tons of things fucking broken and shit, that is like a seriously bad sign. Let's see here, oil life fixed. So I thought I was smelling some gasoline even with the top down, but that could just be the area I'm driving in. So I'm gonna just take it out for another spin, 5-10 minutes, and then we'll see what's going on with it. Yeah, so far it's pretty good. It drives great. But yeah, let's take a look and see what happens next. For the drive, I didn't hear anything. I don't smell anything. Everything seems to be fine. I think the transmission and the engine are probably okay, but there's still, I think, too many red flags. I'm gonna definitely back out. But yeah, the tire pressure is pretty. Oil pressure seems a little low on idle. I don't think it's supposed to be that low, but I'm gonna look into it again. The oil temperature was 230. That seems a little on the high side. I noticed that there was some patchwork that was done on the engine, which didn't look like it was done. The patchwork didn't look like it was done correctly, and the engine was just extremely dirty. So yeah, well, I mean, it was a fun little ride, but something like this is not worth 18K. I think this is probably maybe worth 15K
Because if I was to move forward, I'd take it to do a pre-purchase inspection, but I'm probably not even going to do that. It's not worth it. I'm just going to stick to getting a Corvette from the Corvette forum. I've been reading on there for the last couple of days, and basically you buy Corvettes from other members who create a detailed video log of everything and how they take care of their Corvette. They have all the records and everything, and so that's probably the best way to go about, because every time I find a decent deal, I'm always getting fucked somehow. There is one more dealer I'm going to go to. He's more inner Portland. That Corvette seems like it was probably better taken care of, but we'll see. I'll update you once I know more.
Because of the extremely high markup in used vehicles, if the dealership is not willing to fix at least some of the broken things that you find with the vehicle, then just go to another dealership, because the markup is so high already that they're just being too greedy, and you don't want to be dealing with dealerships like that. If you spend more than 2 to 3 hours at the dealership, that is just them slowing down the process to get your buy-in. Essentially, they want you to waste and commit to as much time as possible, so that way you have already you've sunk in so much time that you can't leave, and that makes you more desperate. So if you notice that they're taking too long, apply pressure on them, or just start to pretend like you're about to leave or something, and eventually they'll just give you the service that you need. I've actually left dealerships multiple times, and it's funny because the more times you come back, the better negotiation power you have, unless they're being completely like mean to you or something. If that happens, just don't come back, because they will try to degrade you and bring you down and stuff. And they use all kinds of scammy tactics. Like what they'll do is they'll say, oh, okay, let me talk to my manager. They'll go in the back and they'll just sit around doing nothing, checking their phone, pretending like they're doing something, like they're talking to the manager, but they're probably not doing that at all. You never have to pay a down payment on a vehicle. That is literally what the dealership wants, and not necessarily what the bank wants. Pretty much, if you have money, just keep it. You're better off keeping the money than giving it directly to the dealership. With the financing and how it is, usually you can get a pretty good rate on a vehicle. Unless the bank physically says that you need to do a down payment, you most likely don't. And if you can't get the terms you want from the specific bank you're working with, just find a different bank. There's plenty of banks that are sometimes low on customers, and they're willing to drive very good APRs, like 2.99 APR on a used vehicle is pretty good. So keep your options open. Do not be in a rush. If you're being pressured, or if you're being hurried and you notice that, just take note of it, slow yourself down, and reorient yourself. When you go to the dealership, make sure you know exactly what you're getting and tell them exactly how much you want to pay, because then you can take control of the buying process and not them. With how salespeople work, they want to take control, and you don't want to give them this control, because then they're going to slow things down, they're going to tack on extra fees, and then you're more likely to be manipulated by them. Keep in mind, they will try to tack on extra fees. When you come in through the door of the dealership, tell them, I want this exact vehicle for this exact price, minus any repairs that you think the vehicle needs. And just be firm. If they say they can't do it, say, well, please, can you check with your manager? And do that 2 to 3 times, and then if they're not complying, then that's when you want to leave and check out a different dealership, because there's deals out there and you just have to find them. Do you need extended car warranties? No, you don't. Most of the time you do not need that. The way insurance works with these extended warranties is that they have to make a profit on the extended warranty, and that's something that the dealership does. And they don't use OEM parts, and they usually don't even want to help you. It's usually considered a scam to do, so I would not do the extended warranties unless you have a very specific need and you know your specific car has a problem that will arise in the future. Like, for instance, if you go to carcomplaints.com, you can see every type of car and the type of problems that these cars have and at what mileage. So depending on which vehicle you're getting, if it has 30,000 miles, maybe it will encounter a problem at the 75,000 mile mark. Maybe the transmission needs to be replaced or something, whatever it may be. You just have to be on top of it and decide whether the extended warranty is right for you. If you do get one, try to make sure it's transferable, and if it's not transferable once the vehicle is sold, then make sure that you can get a refund on the unused portion of it, because that way you can at least you can have the coverage and have the peace of mind, but at least get a refund on the unused portions. But yeah, because they have to make a profit on those extended warranties, you're just paying a price premium, plus you're paying for something that might not even break in the first place. So it's tricky. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below. I am standing by to answer all questions, and I do want to help you guys get a vehicle. So if you have any questions, let me know, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Oh, and I have a question for you. What type of vehicle are you looking for, and what type of problems have you encountered so far? I'd love to hear from you guys.